Team, welcome back to another episode on the Process podcast. In today's episode, I sit down with nutritionist Maya Rolston. I feel like this is not just another nutrition episode because she takes us on a journey, and I could resonate a lot with her story, taking me back to my younger days, my insecurities around the way I looked, and the pretty unhealthy habits that I then developed with my food. She takes us through why that's so commonplace and what to actually do about it. And outside of that, just loads of nuggets of wisdom to help us conquer the big nasty world of nutrition. Enjoy. Maya Rolston,
Hello.
welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
How are you doing today?
I'm well. How are you?
I am also well.
Good.
I woke up this morning and I was like in a bit of a weird, agitated teenager mood.
Why?
I don't know.
Hanging out with Ant too much?
Maybe. I mean that's more of like an everyday thing. I'm not
Okay.
always an annoying teenager. I think my deep sleep has been quite poor the last 4 or 5 days. So I've been in bed for like 8 to 9 hours, but it's a very restless sleep. So I feel like physically my body just feels
I
average.
slept incredibly. I'm
Did
sorry
you?
to say.
Are you
Past
good-
couple of days, uninterrupted, go to sleep, haven't woken up at all in the night, wake up in the morning before my alarm, feeling good. So
That's great. I'm really
Sorry.
happy for you. You and your partner,
yeah.
do you have one who's a bad sleeper, one who's a good sleeper?
Yeah, I'm definitely the good sleeper. Is that a thing?
I mean,
He's a pretty bad sleeper. He's a pilot, so it's naturally interrupted, but he is a bad sleeper.
I mean, I've always had in my relationships, and I've typically been the bad sleeper, or the light sleeper, not a terrible sleeper, but it's something I always ask. And I think it is a thing.
It must be.
I do know about, done lots of learning and reading around like polarity and opposites attract. And I feel like this is just another opposites attract thing that brings two
Probably.
people together. I always think
so.
of it's like you got one who's like on guard, is going to wake up and sort shit out if something bad happens in the night, and the other one just sleeps through the whole night.
I reckon so.
That's you.
I'm the deep sleeper. I'm the one that doesn't hear the fire alarm or whatever. So
Nice.
yeah, things are good.
That's a genuine superpower.
Maybe it's growing up in Hong Kong. I don't know. Lots of external noise. I'm fine.
Yeah. Anyhow, that's why I woke up agitated today. But I'm
Okay.
having a really good day. We've had lots of
Good.
laughs here, lots of productive stuff happening, and I'm excited to sit down with you. So before
am
I keep on waffling, tell us, Maya, who are you and what do you do
Okay. In a nutshell.
in a nutshell?
My name is Maya Rolston. I am a nutritionist and a sport and exercise nutritionist. I always feel the need to say both, I suppose. I don't know. Don't want to pigeonhole myself as a sports nutritionist and then people think they can't work with me outside of sport or vice versa. I am self-employed. My business is based and run in Hong Kong. It is online, but pretty much 100% of my client base and all of my work is done in Hong Kong. I work predominantly with women, female athletes, females looking to lose fat, support health, performance, a bit of everything. I do work with some men, but predominantly focusing on women. And I work one-to-one with them in that process. Doing some more group stuff at the moment, but predominantly it's very kind of premium one-to-one dietary support.
Yeah. Okay. So on that note, you just mentioned the group thing. So
Yeah.
you are we're working together at the moment.
There we go. Yeah, I've been seeing lots of you.
Yeah, we're doing an 8-week transformation.
Yeah.
We don't like the word transformation. I know you kind of like...
I'm wincing at shred or
You
transformation.
retract your chin every time I say it.
A little
But
bit.
we're basically doing a sort of challenge with 10 members right now.
Yeah.
And we're running this as a bit of an experiment because
Men and women.
men and women.
Yeah.
And I think we're about halfway in. How's that going so far?
4 weeks on Saturday, going well. I mean, when we had early conversations, I was always a bit cautious with group coaching just because my approach is so personalized and so kind of not a one-size-fits-all approach. So I'm always just like, a little bit reluctant to go into group coaching unless I suppose it's executed and planned to the level that I hope we have. So yeah, no, it's been good so far. I think it's one of those things where you just need to be really, really prepared for it and make sure there is clear structure and everyone feels supported, even if it is that kind of group level. But it's going really well so far. Everyone's seeing results. Some people are more engaged than others, but you're always going to get lots of different types of personalities. And so no, it's going well.
Yeah, we know that the members on that challenge right now are loving it. And it's
great.
crazy, some of the transformations and changes we're seeing in body and energy and output in their performance in the gym are already in 4 weeks. Crazy.
No, it's been awesome. I mean, I'm sometimes surprised when I work with a lot of one-to-one clients. They ask me like, when can I see results? Like, can I see results immediately? And I'm like, you'll be shocked with consistency what you can actually achieve in 30 days if you are consistent. So yeah, no, it's awesome. They've all lost a lot of body fat. being able to maintain strength performance, are feeling good. That's kind of my main aim, and feel like this is something that they can actually, well, be consistent with, continue with. Doesn't feel like something they're going to need, like rehabilitation from, or to rebound from, I suppose, which you might get with a lot of shreds or other kind of programs like that.
Love it. Well, listen, I've personally loved like having you work with our community, and I'm sure we're going to work together more in the future.
For sure, I'd love that.
On that note, Maya, I am always really interested in hearing like the life events that bring someone to where they are today, and specifically with you and like your passion, deep knowledge for nutrition and the work that you're doing. Like, take us as far back as you want to go, but like what's happened in your life that has ultimately brought you to this position today where you set up your own business and you feel very passionate about helping other people in the realm of nutrition?
Good question, Ed. I can jump further back, but the most pivotal moment I can think of was probably 16, 17. You actually won't believe this, and I've just remembered it right now. Kellett did a fitness class at Coastal with you when I was 16 with Mr. Ridgway. They brought us
Yes.
in and we did that.
I was coaching.
I'm not
Mr.
going to give
Ridgway
you
at
all
the
the
time.
credit because it was actually like Mike McKee and those guys that I started going to CrossFit Cavaliers back in the
Yeah.
day. I think it probably started with exercise. So I was always very sporty, played a lot of netball, tennis, football. Did all the sports, running, cross country, whatever. It was such a carefree time, I suppose, when you have absolutely no association between sport and exercise and any kind of body composition or body. I didn't even know I had a body. I was so sort of unaware of it. Played a lot of sport, but got into more like strength training and exercise for the sake of exercise, I suppose, when I was probably around 17, 18. My boyfriend at the time got me into strength training, tried to kind of pull me away from like all the pure spin classes and get me doing a little bit more sort of strength stuff. So I guess that kind of developed my interest in sport. But I would say at that stage, it became a little bit more of wanting to kind of change my body in the beginning. So 16, 17 for me, that was kind of probably when I changed from being like looking just like a little girl and rail thin to kind of feeling like a little bit more aware of what I looked like and my body image and things like that. So I guess initially, it came from wanting to make, I guess, changes. And then my interest, I guess, in nutrition kind of stemmed from there. But it always, I mean, unfortunately, I hate saying this, but a lot of that interest does usually stem from wanting to lose fat. So I'd say that was probably initially when I started to kind of wake up to, I guess, what I was eating and the impact that nutrition could have or food could have. I probably at the time said I wanted to get fit and strong, but I probably did just want to lose a little bit of body fat. How did that bring me to where I am now? That's a broad question. So the interest in nutrition, wanting to change my body, wanting to lose a little bit of fat, getting into strength training. I basically finished school and was going to apply to either go to drama school or study English literature. So I was very creative, anything written, reading, analytical, speaking, presenting, performing, that was my thing. I didn't even do GCSE science. I did BTEC science. That was, well, it's besides the point, but I hated it. I was crap at science, crap at maths, didn't want anything to do with that. So it is quite funny. I always think like, oh, I should tell Mr. Benton that I did 2 science degrees. Like, this is hilarious. They're never going to believe it. I was like the person nobody wanted to be partnered up with. Transition into having a year out. I was going to apply to maybe do English drama. Ended up just loving training, loving nutrition. School was done. And I just felt like that was something that I was still interested in day to day. Like, I was thinking about it. I wanted to learn more about it independently. So I was just like, okay, a friend of mine was doing it. I was like, maybe this is a good subject for me. I know it kind of relates to sport. In honesty, I didn't think about it too much. My teacher, head of sixth form, told me that Sheffield Hallam University had a decent sports team. They were good for netball. I didn't even know where Sheffield was. So yeah, I guess I kind of got lucky in some ways with picking something that I still like live and breathe and absolutely love now.
So what was it that you actually studied in the end?
I studied nutrition. It was called Nutrition, Diet and Lifestyle.
I know this was not where I wanted to take this conversation, but how did you land on that?
Oh my God. It was It's actually, I don't really know how I like got through it.
Yeah, I mean,
My
because
other
it
degrees.
obviously ended up being a great choice
Yeah,
for you.
it
Like, you're obviously
was.
passionate
It
about it.
was
You loved
lucky.
it.
He told me it was a good uni. I'd never, everyone thinks I'm from England. I'm from like the south of England. They're like, oh, you've got such a Southern English accent. I'm like, I don't even know where that is. I'm Northern Irish. I grew up in Hong Kong. My parents are both from Belfast. I'd spent little to no time in England. I'd been to London once to stay with Edmund, my brother, at 16, but I'd really barely ever been to England before. So Sheffield was like, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, let's go there.
Yeah.
Landed up to my halls of residence. I was like, what have I done? Little gal from Hong Kong. It was a bit of a shock to the system. It was a very, very difficult transition. It was tough. But yeah, I guess I just kind of got lucky. I chose something that I did learn to love. Was that the question? Sorry.
Well, I don't know.
I've got so much to say.
I just think I do think like choosing your course at university is hard. I had
Yeah.
absolutely no idea. Well, I did know that I wanted to do something in sport and exercise and
Yeah.
fitness. I've always had this like dream. I talked about this lots of time in the podcast, so I won't bore our listeners, but since, like 8 to 10 years old, we would be in the UK on summer holiday, and we would drive past a recreation center, just those, shitty ones, and like,
Yeah. And you were like,
and I'd be like, I'm gonna have one of those. I'm gonna own one of
wow.
those. So I always knew that I wanted to do that. But I just think at 16, 17, 18, it's just such a hard choice to make. I was always deep down saying I should be doing something to do in sport, but then the noise around me was all saying, do a business degree, do something
It's
general, then
interesting.
you can go into it. And in hindsight, I really regret not choosing something. And people go, oh, but you found your passion later, and like, the business stuff that you learn would have helped you set up a business. Absolutely, it did not.
No,
Like, it was a means to an end of just
yeah.
getting through those 3 years as fast as I could. So I'm always, in a way, quite envious when I hear people chose a course that they genuinely loved.
But so am I.
And were passionate
you
about.
think I'm that person. I never had a vision for where it would take me or where it would bring me. I had no concept that being a nutritionist would give me a flexible schedule, would allow me to teach people, work with. I honestly sound so naive.
Yeah.
I guess I was naive. I wasn't stupid,
But
but
also, I mean, how many? We're talking like 9 years ago, right? When you chose,
almost 10 years ago. I'm 28. Yeah.
Yeah, that was, online nutritionists and freelance nutritionists wasn't
But it's
really
weird.
massive.
Yeah. I guess it's weird that I didn't kind of consider any kind of outcome from that. At that stage, I just thought, all my brothers have gone to uni. They all got 2-1s. One got a first. Like, I've got to get my shit together and get a degree. And this seems interesting enough. I think at that stage, I maybe thought, English literature or drama, fine. But maybe this was a bit more, maybe realistic for actually what I was thinking about at that stage. Like I said, I had a year out and that was kind of on my mind all the time. But yeah, I think I got lucky with what I chose. And then I went on selecting all the sports modules when I was at university. I played netball, which I think is honestly the only reason I got through that degree. I definitely think I would have I hate to say it. I'd like to think I would have the grit to persevere, and I'm sure I would have. I'm sure my parents would have supported me in that. But I really think that I nearly didn't go to netball trials, and that just kept me going, gave my week structure, brought me into S&C, ended up S&C coaching, working in that environment, working with athletes. That's where I kind of developed my love of performance and that whole performance setup, which I'm sure we'll go into. But before we go into that, and then I selected all the sports-based modules and then ended up doing a master's in sport and exercise nutrition, which is so mental for me. I remember handing in my dissertation with one of my best friends. We did all of our assignments together. He was highly academic, submitted his dissertation, started his dissertation the night before and still got it in. Got way higher marks than me. But I remember saying, never let me do another degree again. This has been the most horrible thing I've ever done in my life. And then boom, 2 months later, I was like, ooh, Oxford Brookes, okay, let's go. And I did it, and I'm so stoked that I did. But again, a couple months in, I was sitting down with my professor and saying, can I stop after the first couple months? But persevered, got it done. But yeah, happy I did it. But
Okay,
it was hard.
I'd like to talk about the S&C thing now.
Yeah,
because I know we spoke a little bit about your journey
Yeah.
before this, and you just alluded to it. This idea at kind of 16, your mindset started to move towards the way that you looked.
Totally. Yeah.
And there was something happened in your early years of existence that ultimately had an impact on the way that you were looking at your body,
Yeah.
and maybe the way that you're looking at your food as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so the whole idea of S&C and focusing on performance, Was that something that resonated with you because it was so opposite to
I think so.
what you were
Yeah.
thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think initially it was just a means of fat loss. I didn't realize probably how restrictive I was being because I didn't have the education, I didn't have the tools.
Can you give it, sorry to pause you,
No,
but give me
please.
some examples of like restrictiveness.
Like at that time, what was it, 2014, 2015, it was like Instagram was crazy with all like the clean eating waves, loads on like veganism and like anti-meat animal products. Like people that are my age will probably like know the creators that I'm talking about. But I was definitely really like brainwashed and influenced by that like very like health halo purity, like all the Instagram images of like fruit bowls and smoothie bowls and all that. Anyway, but an example of restriction would be like no carbs, like very like high protein paleo movement, which was very like CrossFitty and kind of glamorized a little bit. So I would say like I was probably quite hungry a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And like when you're hungry and when you're in quite an aggressive deficit, like the mental noise around food is loud. Do you know what I mean? And like obviously the more aggressive that deficit, the louder that noise is, which I guess I just have too much to say on this topic, which I guess like seeps into a lot of the work I do now, where I'm like, you don't have to do that. You don't have to go to bed hungry. You don't have to, hate the process and be waiting for a break from it or waiting for it to be over. It can be enjoyable. So that's a few examples of how I was. And I don't think I didn't really mean to be overly restrictive. I just thought that was like correct. That's
Yeah.
how you be healthy. And I was probably battling a little bit with like, oh my God, if I don't go to the gym like 5 times a week, like I'll feel bad about that sort of
Yeah.
thing. And I only realized this in retrospect because now I have such great relationship with food and training and whatever. And like I can not go to the gym or have 2 weeks off and I wouldn't really it wouldn't stress me out in any way. But at that time, I would say I was quite married to my routine and how that made me feel, probably more from like oh my God, if I don't do this, I might feel a bit guilty or whatever. And I guess, yeah, maybe that just comes out of people in a position of authority or family members or friends or people that you look up to or respect, telling you that that is kind of the correct thing to do.
Yep.
And I think that's the danger. We spoke about this a little bit yesterday with nutrition is like anyone can be believed. There's so many people who are unqualified that have the authority because they're in great nick or great shape or, whatever that can very much lead you astray. And I'd say that kind of relationship with food, I wouldn't say it was like overly disordered. I would say my mindset was just not the most like positive.
Yeah.
It was probably quite a compensatory mindset around food, earn your food and, all of that kind of thing. I guess when I transitioned to university, the focus was on sport. It was on performance. I was finding out things like, the amount of weight that you could hip thrust directly correlated with sprint speed. And I was like, mind was blowing. And also I moved away from more of like a bodybuilding aesthetic style of training, more to strength and conditioning. So in a group gym, training with like 15 other girls in my netball team, like all lifting weights, doing, full body sessions rather than splits, like having to do what was programmed rather than kind of what I wanted to do. And like the buzz of that and the focus on performance and strength and like output rather than like input and aesthetics. I found I know a lot of people have felt like that kind of saved them as well or shifted their mindset. But for me, that was just like amazing. I love the environment kind of more than anything else. But yeah.
Team, I want to quickly interrupt this episode to give a little shout out to our sponsors today, Well Spent. This little journal has made such a massive, profound impact on my life since I started using it. When I started using it, I actually didn't know that it was backed by neuroscience, but now it totally makes sense. This has brought a ton of gratitude to my life. It keeps me on track and focused on the things I need to do day to day and brings a lot of context as to how each day fits within the greater week and the greater month. So if you, like me, really care about trying to be a high performer and want to do everything you can to make that happen, I cannot recommend this journal enough. Use our discount code, THEPROCESS, to grab yours today. I can resonate a lot with, like I've always had like body image issues, like from
Everyone does, to a certain extent. Some
and then that the insecurities then morphed into nutrition and how I ate,
Yeah.
because I was feeding the insecurities. You just said that you're in a position now where you can literally take 2 weeks off the
Yeah.
gym and it ridges the body. So would you say, I'm not saying it's not about curing, but would you say like you've really parted ways with that old self, or do you still get triggered? Do you still have fleeting moments where you,
That's a good question. I am so rational and so in control of my choices because of my education and my understanding of energy balance and macronutrients and how I'm feeling, that nothing's confusing for me as to why I'm feeling that way. Or like, I'm feeling heavier. I'm like, yeah, I've been eating out all week. Like, I've had friends in town. That's fine. I'm just so rational with it now. And I guess I just know that, like, I'm just a result of my choices. And like, sometimes I'm going to make different choices and sometimes I'm going to make other, yeah, I'm just really at peace with it, I would say. Sorry, reframe your question again.
no, and that's really
Did
it.
I
I
answer it?
guess what you're saying is that you're like, the fact that you've built up all this evidence and knowing,
Yeah.
I think, yeah, probably
Is there anything that I'm triggered by
well,
then
I guess
now?
your triggers in the past came from the fact that you actually just didn't know,
Yeah,
right? And
exactly.
now that you know, it's easy to rationalize and
Yeah,
catch yourself and say, actually, Maya, you're
totally.
feeling this, or you're looking like this, or you're weighing this because of, and if you want to change it, you know what to do.
For sure. It's like, okay, I don't feel that good in my body at the moment. Maybe I've put on a little bit of body fat. Okay, I'll just like realign my choices.
Yeah.
But I definitely, I mean, in terms of feeling triggered by anything these days, I hate to say it, but like, I am so consistent with the habits that make me feel good that like the wheels are never going to come so off for me.
Yeah.
But that's, I'd say, the big shift is like, maybe previously with a very all or nothing mentality, I would have been like, what's the point of doing a bodyweight workout on holiday? Like, that's not going to do anything. I had a really perfectionist mentality around exercise. Now I'm like, let's throw a band on a tree in South Africa and do like some banded rows, or like, I'm just like doing it because it makes me feel good. And I know actually across the year as a whole, all of those little micro habits or whatever will add up to be like extremely beneficial. It's probably like hundreds of extra workouts or, you know, stimulus on the muscles or whatever. You're the training guy, but it's kind of similar in nutrition. Like, I'm
Yeah.
still, yeah, very much have a, you know, control what you can, do what you can when you can. So I'm always in a position where I'm, yeah, the wheels never fully come off, which I think does help in terms of being triggered. But yeah, I definitely have times, particularly like when hormones are fluctuating, or certain times of the month where I'm like bloated and I'm just like, oh my God, don't want to like look at myself kind of thing, or that would maybe trigger me a bit. But again, it's like, I track my cycle. I know when that's coming. I know to wear like a baggier t-shirt to the gym so I'm not like distracted by like pulling my t-shirt out if I feel like it's tight around my stomach. And like, again, like, knowledge is power, and I utilize that to, I guess, yeah, manage a lot of those triggers. I don't think they ever fully go away, but you just learn how to kind of live around them, I suppose.
Yeah. I think the whole like all or nothing approach is very prominent in like nutrition and training,
Yeah,
especially, right? It's
definitely.
where we probably hear it the most,
Yeah.
because you're either training consistently and it's part of your life, or you're not. And the reason you're
Mm,
not is because you're like, oh, I'm going to wait till New Year's resolution and I'm
mm,
going to get after it, or I'm going to start my diet on Monday, or
absolutely.
why do we have that? Like, behaviorally as human beings, where does
Mm.
this come from, and why do we do it, do you think?
That's interesting, because I was actually going to do a reel on this week, and I was going to compare the fact that I feel like it's easier, and you might disagree with this, but for me, I feel like it's easier to identify like the fallback options for training, as in to reject the all or nothing mentality. So, for example, for me, if I'm traveling a lot, it's like my normal gym routine in Hong Kong is ideal. Okay. Let's say I'm on holiday, but I have like limited access to a gym, or like my boyfriend's parents have a set of dumbbells at home, then I can do that. Or all the way through to like the South Africa trip I was just on, I just did some body weight workouts. That's like a tiered system. I feel like it's easier to give fallback options for training. Is what I'm saying making sense?
Yeah.
Whereas when I think when it comes to nutrition, people don't really know how to identify healthy and not healthy. Like, how do you identify the in between? And a lot of my clients struggle with that. Whereas I'm sort of like, okay, we don't have any control, but can we look at having regular meals? Can we look at just eating mindfully and like trying not to overeat when you eat out? Like, for me, there are so many micro goals and habits that we can implement that will support my clients or support individuals in rejecting that all or nothing mentality. But I think it's more nuanced, perhaps. Like, people think, oh, this is either a healthy meal or an unhealthy meal. Like, instead of looking at, you know, their day of eating as a whole, their behaviors around food, like that bird's eye view of their week or their month, and the fact that all those I think sometimes people think that those small choices or those inclusionary choices, that one good meal, what's it really going to do
Yeah.
if I'm like, on the wine all week and, eating whatever I want. But I think the crux of finding that middle ground is finding peace with food, developing a healthier relationship with food so you don't feel restricted. So you're not blowing out from like one extreme to the other. Finding that middle ground is kind of like my mission and my goal with a lot of clients.
Well,
Is that making sense?
well, can we just talk about the whole idea of like your relationship with food and this
Yeah.
whole idea of like demonizing food, putting food on like a pedestal,
Yeah.
good days, bad
I can
days,
apply what I just
healthy,
said to
cheat
my,
meals. Yeah, like what can we do about that? Because I think a lot of people exist in that space, right? It's like ice cream is a bad meal, pizza is a bad meal.
I think a lot of the unpicking that I do, like, and I have done within myself almost subconsciously, but what I now consciously do with a lot of clients is maybe have them write down, like, in their initial form, do you have any like subconscious or conscious food rules that you adhere to?
Yeah.
Like voice them, tell me about them. Like, oh, I wouldn't do that on a weeknight. Or like, would you order a pizza on a Tuesday night? Oh, absolutely not.
Okay, you're gonna do this on me now.
Okay, what are
Because
your
I would like to do
subconscious
it.
food rules?
Okay, so I would say I don't really. Okay, I'd actually probably say that I do have them now I think about it, and I think what you just said about you like not having bad meals in the week. That's something I consciously think about. I don't know if I have it as a governing rule because if I went out to a restaurant tonight with my
Yeah.
friends and they all said we're going for pizza, I'd happily have a pizza.
But you wouldn't do it yourself
But I
at
would
home
not do
with
it
your
myself.
wife or
No,
anything.
I'm
Yeah.
very conscious, I think, Monday to Friday. And I think the story I tell myself is that it's a work week. I want to train hard. I want to be mentally focused because I want to get the most out of my work week. And if I have crappy food, it's going to negatively impact the way that I feel. And therefore, like, hard no. And it might even be like, my wife loves like a Belgian chocolate Haagen-Dazs ice cream. And she'll say, do you want a scoop? And I'll say, no. But if it was a weekend, if it was a Saturday,
rational, and that's an educated
it's
choice.
a rational choice for sure. But I definitely feel this like, there's this like,
a little bit of resistance.
there's definitely some resistance. I make
Interesting.
the conscious choice. I could also, because the way that I think about
And I
food,
do the same, by the way.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I probably, like if I'm home alone, there's no way I'm like having something unhealthy for dinner or less nutrient dense or higher calorie on a weeknight. But that's only because I prefer to spend my calories on the weekend.
Yeah.
There's a fine line between rational and educated choices versus restriction. I could be highly restrictive, but if I'm coming at it from a healthy, rational mindset, and that's what I want to do because I know that that supports me, then that's a different thing.
Yeah.
It's not the behaviors, it's the thought processes behind the behaviors.
Okay, so
and how neurotic or how like I would not be my boyfriend was just in town for 2 weeks. I didn't have a home cooked meal for 2 weeks. And that I wanted to have a home cooked meal. We were so social. We had friends in town and it was fun. And it was 2 weeks. And I knew after he left, I would kick myself if I didn't just enjoy that with him because I'd go back to my normal routine.
I think now I'm thinking about it, I don't really have any restrictive behaviors, but I certainly had a lot.
Yes.
Like growing up. Like university, you're talking about university, I was like no carbs after 6. It was just chicken and broccoli.
Yeah.
I had like cheat days up until age 28.
Yeah.
So that would be like extreme restrictive eating to the point of like extreme hunger at nighttime.
Yeah. And do you find well, in my experience, bouncing between those, I always explain to clients, like bouncing between those middle grounds, like both of them suck.
Yeah.
You either feel hungry or you feel guilty and over fueled and overfed.
Yeah, hungover actually. Like I felt horrendous. I'd come in on a Monday and I'd actually feel hungover just from like just crap food.
Yeah.
And I lived with Ant for a lot of this period of my life, and we would take it to the extreme.
Yeah.
We'd be like looking at the clock and counting down the minutes of how long we had till the day was over.
That's crazy.
And being stuffed and literally like running down to 7-Eleven and just grabbing as much crap as we could, sitting on the sofa, not remotely hungry, not even enjoying it, but just saying, I'm not going to be able to do this for 6 more days.
I think it's more common than you think though.
Yeah.
And I mean, my kind of timeline was similar in the sense that, not a very good relationship with food all the way through to feeling so at peace with it now. And I think, understanding what kind of initial ideas people had before I worked with them, what their history was, like what their family used to tell them.
Yeah.
Like a lot of my 30, 40-year-old female clients are still unpacking a lot of the things they've just been told, like a very reward-based mindset, for example. Like after the first week of dieting, they're like, but I lost weight. So, oh, I had like a cheat day. And I'm like, why did you do that? It's like, I don't know. I was like, you were feeling so great. You know that nothing's off limits. And it's like, yeah, like just working through
Just
that,
unwind, yeah,
you know?
ungluing things that have been a part of you for so long.
And I think your initial question was like, how do you get from that to that?
Yeah,
I think it's doing the right things nutritionally. So regular meals, not skipping meals, making sure you're
yeah,
not in too much of an aggressive deficit, but also doing all of the work emotionally. And like
yeah,
having these conversations, like I do have these conversations with clients about mindful eating and ideas that they have, and like consciously, I suppose, unlearning and changing their approach. But that emotional or psychological side of things, I feel only works if you're doing the right thing nutritionally as well. And like that, I don't believe in things like willpower. And I think it's total bollocks. Like, of course, you're going to have no willpower if you've eaten like a bird until dinner time. And then you have an abundance of food around you. You've been stressed all day and this is the time for you. And you've
yeah.
got chocolate and Deliveroo and whatever, you know? It's putting yourself in an environment, I suppose, where, yeah, you can support yourself.
Why do you feel particularly drawn to work with women? I know that's something that it's a
Mm,
demographic that you really focus on. And I think you've said, one of your missions is to like get women to feel empowered,
mhm.
comfortable with their bodies and have great relationships with food. Like, where did that come from?
I suppose when I look back at 17, 18-year-old me, I was so lost. And there's so much evidence-based information online now. I don't think I would have struggled as much. You know, no one spoke about a calorie deficit.
Yeah,
I remember literally saying to a friend of mine, like, one day maybe we'll understand like what you need to do to lose fat. Like it was a mythical creature, like
yeah,
no idea. I am drawn to help women because I have like walked in their shoes. Like when women come to me, even on my intake call, I need to like remain calm because I don't want to get overexcited, but
yeah,
I so desperately want to work with them and help them.
yeah.
So I
You're just
find it's like
resonating with a lot of things
it's
they're saying.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm just like I so understand you, but I've got to like, be professional, explain the process or whatever. But yeah, I've been in that position. I have felt so lost. I felt so stuck, and I have felt so distracted by the mental noise around food, how I felt in my body that I couldn't enjoy like really important occasions. And sometimes I wake up now and I'm like, oh, it feels so good to feel good and to not be thinking about things
yeah,
and to not be like, oh, I wonder, like, oh, was that a good choice for lunch? And be like beating myself up if I think I made a bad or good choice. And like, I was someone who, like, I don't even think my relationship with food was that bad, but it still took up a lot of time and energy and not, impacted probably relationships and things like that. And yeah, I just remember being like 18, 19, and I didn't know about strength training. I didn't know how to improve my body composition, to lose a bit of fat. I didn't know what to do. And I just remember like just feeling so tight in my jeans and just being like, oh, this sucks. And I don't have a solution to this. Whereas I said now, if my jeans are a little bit tighter, I'm just like, fine, I've got all the tools. Like I know exactly what to do if I want to change that. That even makes me feel more at peace with like having kids one day or things like that, because I know that I have the power to, regain my fitness and strength and things like that in that kind of way. So yeah, I've been them and I want to help them. And I suppose I understand a lot of the challenges that come up more so with women than men. Men do have a lot of these exact same issues, men too,
absolutely.
but for sure. But I do feel like I've dieted on the same calories as women.
Yeah,
I understand how it feels to, be training on your period. Like I understand, those fluctuations in hunger and cravings and how difficult that sometimes feels to manage. Those body image fluctuations in tandem with hormonal fluctuations. And yeah, I guess I just know what it's like as a woman, young woman, to want to lose fat. Predominantly, my clients are fat loss clients, but to navigate like a normal, unrestricted life,
yeah,
support health, performance, relationship with food, that sort of thing. And I think that's why a lot of people want to work with me. I didn't see many women that were like me when I was my age, that weren't like fitness or weren't like, oh, they just like, go for a walk and aren't into sport. I'd never seen a middle ground. I know you didn't ask this, but I think
yeah,
it leads into this well. I hadn't seen someone like me in the fitness industry coaching the way that I think that I coach. Of course, now there are many amazing nutritionists that share my same ethos and do similar work to what I do, but I didn't see it when I was younger. So I think I wrote that down as my bio for like the first job I got post university, which is like I want to be the person that I needed when I was 16. I've changed that now because my clients aren't 16, some are 16, but to like I want to be the person that I needed when I first started my journey, because I was so lost and there was just no one out there.
Yeah, I resonate a lot with that.
Mm.
I want to talk about our 8-week transmission challenge.
Okay.
We're just going to call it that for now.
Yeah, that's
Forget the
fine.
word. But I would like to learn what you have actually done
Okay.
with our 10 clients.
Okay.
Because I think the reason why I think this is important, or I think this would be a good conversation, is that right now we're in summer.
Yeah.
And I don't think, I mean, the whole idea of summer shredding, I mean, people are always wanting to get to a level of leanness at some point. We
Yeah.
have different motivations. It's like you got wedding photos coming up,
Yeah.
you got weddings coming up. And given that this is 8 weeks, so it's not a massive time frame, we're already seeing, yes, the population of people that you're working with do train probably at least 3 times a week, right?
Yeah.
Here at Coastal Fitness. So
But they're not crazy. Well,
we're not talking
we're
professional
not
athletes.
talking like exactly.
No,
So for
we're
people
talking about,
listening, it's
yeah,
a normal
people
amount
with,
of training.
yeah, 9 to 5
Yeah.
jobs, Monday to Friday, work hard. This is something they squeeze in maybe 60 minutes a day.
Yeah.
And we're already seeing from what you've done some really amazing results.
Yeah,
And this is done
absolutely.
in a group format.
Yeah.
So I would
have I done?
like for you to take us through the general steps. You don't have to give away
Okay.
all your secrets.
Yeah, that's
but
fine.
give us the general steps that you've now taken with these people
Okay.
to start seeing, really. And some of these people, by the way, have been, training, doing full body strength and conditioning 4 to 5 days a week for the last 10 years. And they're feeling like in 4 weeks, they're like the leanest they've ever been and they still feel great. So like we're talking
great.
people who've been in this space for a very long time
Yeah.
that are making big breakthroughs. So what do you do? Like where did you start on this 8 weeks and how are we getting such great results in just 4 weeks?
Good question. I'm going to try and keep it as concise as I can.
And I know it has to be a bit generalized because you've done
Yes.
slightly different things with different people. But
Yeah. So, well, essentially, I met each individual and we took baseline measurements and they completed a fairly detailed questionnaire. So, how frequently they train, what type of training sessions, are they hyroxing, marathoning, is their job quite sedentary? Got an understanding of their sort of current eating habits, how many meals on average they would have, just like all the baseline information. Do they take supplements? Do they have any health conditions? How many steps on average would they do in a day? All of the stuff that I would need to, height, weight, activity levels that I would need to kind of understand more about them. One thing I also always put in my initial questionnaire, which I like, is what are you not willing to do to reach your goals? Yeah. And that's always really, really beneficial. And that's always, of course, reasonable things, skipping meals, fasting, whatever. I'm like, don't worry, you're not going to do that anyway. And I also met all of them, which I think really does help. I'm sure as a coach, you can understand that. You just know who you're talking to. And yeah, you just understand a little bit more about each individual, what their job is, getting a sense of the person. Essentially, what they were provided on week 1 was a welcome pack, which spoke through energy balance, talking about maintenance calories, the fact that everything under that is a deficit. Even if you are, a few hundred calories over, we spoke about range targets and being in a 500 calorie deficit or a 300 calorie deficit, whatever. So energy balance, macronutrient targets, range macronutrient targets, basically everything that I've bottled up, I guess, into a welcome pack that I wish
So
I
it's
had.
basically like educate yourselves on the basics that you
Yes.
need to know.
Yeah, I
Got
said
it.
I'd be concise and I've basically taken you through page by page.
Yeah.
But yeah, energy balance, range targets, the most important fundamentals of fat loss.
So pause.
Yeah.
So what we're saying is that for someone listening who hasn't worked with a nutritionist before,
Yeah.
most important things they need to know when they start this journey that you think, like the things they have to educate
For a
themselves
fat
on
loss goal?
for a fat loss goal
Yeah.
are
Energy balance.
so that's basically calories, right?
Yep.
Calories in versus calories out.
Yep. And making sure that that is aligned. That is just bread and butter of fat loss. If you're not losing fat, it's not that the numbers are wrong. It's you're not adhering to those numbers.
Okay, so let's simplify that to another level. So basically, they need to figure out roughly how many calories they're burning, right? And they need to roughly figure out how much calories they're consuming.
Not even that.
Not
well,
even?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, estimating your maintenance calories based on current weight, height, activity levels can be done. Let's use me as an example.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm about 63 kilos, give or take. I reckon maintenance for me is about around 2,000.
How did you work that out?
I do a full equation, but if you want an easy, cheap one, the one I went over yesterday, body weight in kilos times 33 is an estimation of your BMR times 1.55, which is moderate activity levels, maybe an hour,
Okay,
5 times a day.
I'm going to break this down and simplify it. Okay. So we're taking your body weight in kilograms
times
multiplied by 33, and that's going to give you a BMR. So that's how many calories you're burning if you were to not lift a finger.
Yes, correct.
Yes. And
Yeah.
then you're multiplying that by 1.555,
0.55,
which
which
is
is a
like,
physical activity calculator.
which is
So
just someone who's training.
I'd say that's pretty normal. That's never not worked for me with my client base.
Okay, got it.
But I do a more detailed one based on their height, weight, whatever. You can do ones in pounds, kilos. There's lots of different like proper equations, but that's just like a little hack that I would use. But I think, yeah, body weight in kilos times 22, I think gives you an estimation of BMR, and then you times it by how active someone is.
Got it.
So if they're more sedentary, you could be more conservative with 1.4. There's plenty of ways to do it. But yeah, I use a
Or you
scientific
just go onto
equation.
Google and type in.
100%. Most women will lose fat at 15 to 1700 calories. Okay. Like that, pretty much. There are a few outliers, highly muscular, highly active women, athletes, women who are carrying a lot of lean muscle mass, or very petite, smaller women. But for the most part, it's within 15 to 1800. For the most part, majority of individuals.
Daily intake.
Hitting your calories is super important. So on our group program, everyone is tracking their calories on MyFitnessPal. With my one-to-one clients, nobody tracks their calories, because obviously I can be much more personalized with, well, I say that on our group coaching program, they still have similar meal structure and portion guides and things like that and frameworks to follow. But obviously on a group program, people do need to be a little bit more self-led.
Yeah.
So that's just going to ensure
And there's
that
a short timeline on this as well.
we want them to hit the ground running. So tracking makes sense in that group context. Everyone was comfortable to do so. So that's been really helpful, more so as a tool of education as well. I don't think that's something that they should do in the long term. So it's just a short-term education tool, like a dictionary. You look something up, you shouldn't need to continue to look it up again and again.
Yeah.
I don't think tracking is a lifestyle. I think there are pros and cons to tracking, but that's probably another podcast. But I still really encourage people to always focus on the habits. So still be intuitive with hunger and fullness cues, mindful eating, not just being too robotic with, well, I've tracked it, so I'm going to eat it, or, you know, I need to do this, I need to do that. But to go back to the basics, understanding your calories, what maintenance looks like, what a consistent deficit looks like, how to utilize range targets. And again, rejecting that all or nothing mentality and knowing that if you do have a day or two where you go above them, anything still below your maintenance is a deficit. You might just lose slightly less fat that week. So yeah, educating people to be consistent and not too perfectionist with their energy intake, I think, is really key. And then looking at things like protein, hitting your protein targets.
How important is that?
I mean, so important within a fat loss phase. I think so important generally, particularly for the female athlete or female individual. We know that lean muscle mass is incredibly health protective. I do a lot of work with bone health as well. So yeah, getting enough protein, strength training will support your bones as well. Yeah, so important. So I think people are a bit bored of hearing about protein. They're like, oh, so much protein. Like, we're almost going the other way. Like,
But
it's not that
I
important.
still think though that the vast majority of people are still under eating protein.
100%.
Even though everyone's talking about protein,
Yeah.
for most people, when they actually,
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's breakfast. It's breakfast and a snack.
Yeah.
That's my top tip. Lunch and dinner, people normally get there, but it's those other meals and looking at your total. And we know that total protein intake is the most important thing.
Yeah.
New research has come out showing that kind of meal timing is less important, and that kind of minimal, you know, we can only absorb X amount of protein per meal.
Yeah. Can you debunk that, please?
In simple terms, there was a new study that came out. So the original school of thought that was that we're anything above 25 or, well, and then it went up to 40 grams of protein per meal was like just went away in your body, or like you couldn't continue to stimulate muscle protein synthesis with more than 40 grams. New studies came out showing, I think, a feed of 50 grams and a feed of 100 grams in one meal, and showed that that was continuing to kind of be utilized across the day. So basically disprove the idea that evenly spaced feeds of protein were optimal for stimulating muscle protein synthesis, and actually prove that total protein intake was the most important thing, which would be positive for people that I guess like are limited with timing or access or whatever, that you can actually have two larger feeds of protein and still
hit your daily protein
exactly
intakes.
And that will still work for muscle building and recovery and things like that. However, thing I would still say from a behavioral standpoint, a satiety standpoint, and adhering to your caloric intake standpoint, we know that evenly spaced feeds of protein is still optimal for most people. Breakfast, lunch, a protein-rich afternoon snack, dinner. It's much more likely that you're going to be able to adhere to reduced calories if you're eating regular meals.
Question.
Yeah.
Protein shakes.
Yeah.
So the, you know, pre-digested protein, which is absorbed very quick. Can you, if I was to have 100 grams of protein
Mm,
in the form of a protein shake.
yeah. I think the study was done with whey protein.
Ah, cool. And it
And
was
I believe,
protein
if
synthesis.
I'm wrong, sorry, but I
Yeah.
believe that some of the feedback that I saw on a podcast from another nutritionist was saying I would have loved, he either said I would have loved to see it. I think he said I would have loved to see it in Whole Foods
Yeah.
versus whey protein shakes. And I think his criticism or justification was how practical is it for someone to like be drinking that much whey protein powder in a shake? I could be making this up,
I do
but
think though that if it's
it's def-
valid, if it's
yeah,
valid and we can absorb up to 100 grams
yeah.
plus in a shake, then I
Mm.
would say that the argument for doing that with food would be even more justified.
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%. But that has been really interesting. And that's one of the few things that has really changed my mind when it comes to how I deliver evidence. And
Yeah.
something we discussed yesterday is it's all evidence-based. And that's what I love about nutrition, like evidence-based nutrition or, nutrition for performance is in contrast to the way that I learned when I was younger. It's like, oh, listen to him because he's like really jacked.
Yeah.
Whereas this is like, it's nothing to do with me. It's nothing to do with you. It's literally looking at what the science says is most optimal. And I think I take a lot of comfort in that rather than like opinions and what you see. Like, I'm just like not influenced by what anyone else does.
So, okay. So as a
Mm.
general consumer, let's say on social media, there's nutrition shit,
Yeah.
coming at your screen all day.
Mm.
Like, how do you cut through the noise? Like, you talk about this idea of evidence-based, science-based.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean? And how does a consumer who's seeing something maybe come out of left field
Yeah.
with regards to what they should be doing for breakfast, how do
Yeah.
they know whether that's evidence-based or not? And
Yeah.
what can we do as consumers to,
Yeah.
remove the distraction and noise?
Firstly, what is evidence-based? It basically just means that we are basing our recommendations or our choices or our advice on scientific evidence. So things that we know result in positive health and performance outcomes. So yeah, the dietary characteristics that I advise are all based on science.
But I
Like,
feel like there's a study for everything now. I feel like there's a study to prove that everything is right. There's obviously more convincing evidence and more studies that go towards
yeah.
the things, but would you not?
I don't think there's a study that show that like incorrect, ridiculous things are right. For example, I don't think there's a study that proves that the carnivore diet, for example, a diet that is characterized by obviously just meat and such a high level of saturated fat, there's absolutely no way that that is an evidence-based diet. So that's a perfect example. The fact that that has taken off as
See,
like a
I've never
dietary,
I've
like
never
it,
even looked, but you're saying that you don't reckon there's
no,
any
it's not. You
research
don't need
papers.
to look.
Yeah.
We know that X amount of saturated fat will result in heart disease and certain cancers and increase your risk of disease. That's black and white. It doesn't need to be specific on like Jimmy went on a carnivore diet and like he got, heart disease. Like we just know that, people, I'm sure there's many, many studies studying people who are intaking that much saturated fat or are limiting saturated fat to less than 10% of their daily there'll be tons of studies on fat
Where the hell did
intake
carnivore diet
and
come
risk
from
of
then?
disease. I don't know. Look, a high protein diet is great. There are some characteristics of it that actually there aren't. It's just the protein bit is good,
Yeah.
but there's just no way.
What about like low fiber? A lot of carnivore diets are like literally just meat,
Yeah,
nothing. How important is fiber, fruit, and veg?
there are some people online saying that it's like cured their autoimmune disease. I've seen
Yeah,
like
loads
Jordan
of stuff.
Peterson's daughter on
Yeah.
saying that she eats like 3 steaks a day. Like I'm evidence-based and I want to give people the scientific information, but like I'm not opinion-based in like, oh my God, like that's horrendous. Like I don't really care what anyone else does. If they feel good and they want to do it, fine. And that's their school of thought and whatever. And they feel like they've done the research, like fine, like anyone can do whatever. I don't know where it came from. I think it came from like a few people like that maybe like cured their eczema, or that's what I've seen on social media.
Yeah.
I'm still not immune to like all the crap that's on social media. Yeah, I suppose it came from people who felt like it was a magic solution to some kind of health issue or longevity or feeling amazing, giving themselves more energy. But also what's important to understand is, and again, this is where being able to interpret science and like information critically comes into play, is someone saying, I think the vegan diet is amazing. Like it cured me of my, I don't know, pre-diabetes or whatever, for example, right? Okay. Your diet previously was 100% processed food diet.
Yeah,
Now you've changed into having a heap of plant foods. You've increased your fiber intake. You've eliminated a whole load of processed foods. Is that the vegan diet, or is them just eliminating processed foods, bringing in more plant foods?
And I think that's what a
So,
lot of these like miracle story
for sure.
transformations is. It's so void of
We've got to be able to
context.
see the flaws in a study like
Exactly.
that and
Yeah.
understand that, okay, it's probably, is our animal products the enemy in that argument? Like, no. So understanding like cause and effect and things like that is quite important, I think. How do you sieve through the information? I mean, we spoke about this yesterday, in my opinion, and again, this is not like to be judgmental. I'm sure there's many great content creators and people sharing things that maybe don't have like letters to their name. It's a free world, whatever. But specifically when it comes to health, performance, nutrition, I do believe that what makes a qualified nutritionist or dietitian and someone able to give evidence-based advice and do that in an ethical way, they do have to have a degree. I don't know someone who is a nutritionist or a dietitian that doesn't have like MSc or whatever in their bio on Instagram. So yeah, I think you've just got to look for registered qualified nutritionist degree titles, do your research, ask a professional, just be like awake to that. But it's very, very frightening how many people come to me and are like, oh, oat milk's terrible, right? Or like this. And I'm just like, these are smart people with degrees in their field who are very successful and very switched on. And it's like nutrition just seems to slip through the net with what people believe and just not having, I guess, that barrier of like, okay, come on, this is Instagram. I need to be a little bit more vigilant here.
Okay. If you were to give, this is hard, by the way. This is gonna be a hard question, especially knowing you and like how nuanced you believe nutrition is. But like, if Maya could leave like one, it can be a piece of advice, or it can be like 100 words of advice for people that's going to apply to 99% of the population. That's going to help us stop making the stupid same mistakes that we all make with nutrition, because it's a lot simpler than it is. What would that be?
Do not underestimate the power of one positive action per meal, per day, per week, per month. The quicker that you can reject a perfectionist mindset or the all or nothing mindset, move away from that and just focus on what you can control, an inclusion-based, more positive approach, the better. I would say that had the biggest effect on my life and my client's life. I'd say that's more like mindset. I'd say practically in Hong Kong, more home cooked meals. Anything that you can prepare at home is going to be 1,000 times better in terms of protein, fiber, nutrient density, how calorie controlled that meal is. More home cooked meals. I've got mindset, practical, maybe do one for performance. Have a snack before the gym. Get that carb-rich snack in. Make sure you've had something like an hour before training.
What's your carb-rich snack?
I don't have one because I'm always training after a meal. I would say, like I'm probably a mid-morning or an afternoon exerciser. So I've had like eggs on toast, or I've had a carb balance rich protein snack. But if it was, I would say a lot of my high rocks running training clients love a date.
A date,
like
just
medjool
one
dates.
date.
They're like nature's. If we're looking at
dried.
No, like medjool dates.
Okay.
They're gonna cost you.
I don't think I've ever had a date that's not a dried date.
No, I mean they are. That is how they come.
Oh right.
I guess they are. Is a date a dried prune?
I've never seen a date in its normal form.
18 grams of carbohydrate in one date. So if most people are looking to target 1 to 4 grams of carbs per pre-exercise, which could be split into multiple meals.
What's wrong with a banana?
Banana's perfect. 25 grams of carbs in a banana. A date would get you more bang for your buck.
If you have two.
You get 2 or 3 dates, and that's really easy to do.
But you're saying they're expensive.
They're quite expensive. So banana would be a cheaper source of carbohydrate. Banana, and in this heat, like an electrolyte-based energy drink is probably good to sip on, particularly if you're exercising outdoors. Did that cover the bases?
Yeah. I like it. That's good. No nonsense. And I think we've already talked about a lot of the most important things, which you came into the team yesterday and you kind of reminded us on what the most key important things are. Like we talked about, you want to add one more?
One would just be like, just stop, like turn off Instagram when it comes to health advice.
No, cannot.
Oh, unless it's me or Ed.
I'm kidding.
And Coastal. Or just be more vigilant with like who you trust. Look for qualifications, look for people you can trust, or have a consultation with me, and then you never have to worry again.
I like it. Maya, we have a tradition on this podcast, which is to close. I ask the guest to describe their perfect day. So take us through it from start to finish.
I have thought about this exercise before to help me guide my life. I'm assuming there are no rules with like,
No
is it a
rules.
working day or not?
I mean, if you want it to be a working day, it can be.
No, but okay. Wake up in the morning without my alarm. Sun's beaming in.
So sun's already risen.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay, we're not a crazy early starter.
No. Just like it's a nice level of earliness, like
Okay.
maybe 7 a.m. I don't know. I naturally think I'm in Australia for some reason, so maybe that's a sign.
Okay.
That perfect like waking up that it feels like like you're so like feeling you're like excited for the day. Wake up, have some water, hydrate, make a great oat milk flat white. Have that.
Homemade.
Oh, no, actually, I'm changing my mind. Scrap that. Put my bikini on, grab a towel. I'm probably barefoot, straight to the beach.
Nice.
It's early morning, go for a dip. Water temperature's cold, bit of a shock to the system. Swim in the sea, have a bit of a yarn. Boyfriend's there. It's a good day. Little dip, nothing too crazy, no cold plunge. And then I'd say coffee shop, oat milk flat white. Sit down, don't have to be anywhere anytime quickly. We're sitting outside, have a coffee for an hour or so, go back, make breakfast, chill out for a few hours, client feedback, maybe a couple consultations if it's a work day.
Nice.
Have a podcast or a conversation with other like-minded professionals like yourself. Probably it's through to lunchtime now, and I'd say in the afternoon, go play a bit of tennis in the sun. And then I'd say maybe a little Arvo walk. Oh, I'll go to the gym at some stage as well. And then I'd say like barbecue at a friend's house, have a couple of beers, put some protein on the barbecue, have some friends around, chill out, go to bed at like 10. That's, I think, my perfect day.
That sounds like a very great day, Maya.
Yeah, I know. And it's
I
in
think
Australia
you and I would
somehow.
have very similar days. That did sound like a very Australian
Yeah, get my
lifestyle.
strength training in, hit a tennis, swim in the sea, good coffee, great home cooked food, and then yeah, couple of drinks, good food, friends, connection in the evening, maybe a board game or something like that.
Nice. Love it. Maya, where can people find out more about you and how can they work with you?
They can find me at my Rolston Nutrition on Instagram or www.myrolstonnutrition.com. I haven't been very creative with my business name. Yeah, there. Send me a DM. I think there's a link in my bio for a little application form if people want to have a chat with me. But yeah, I'm always happy to speak.
Maya, this has been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah,
Thank you for
likewise.
joining me,
Thank
and
you
we're
for
going to
having
do another one in the future.
I would love
for sure.
to. That'd be great. Thank you, Ed.
Before we say goodbye, here's one crazy statistic for you. Did you know that almost 40% of people who listen to the show don't actually subscribe to it? Now, I didn't think that was a big deal until I actually learned about the power of hitting subscribe. For you, the listener, you get to stay up to date when we drop episodes on a weekly basis. But for us as a podcast, it really helps our visibility and helps us attract great brands and great listeners to help grow this podcast. So if you enjoyed this episode or you're a big fan of the show, please do us a massive favor and hit subscribe. Thank you so much.